Good morning, everybody. Um, I'm going to be on first to give you a couple of disclaimers before this show gets kicked off. The first thing is that this one is going to be a little more heavy than any of the shows I've done before. Um, in a good way, informative way, hard to swallow way, um, but necessary. I think we as society, uh, people that say we follow God, have a hard time talking about one, trauma, and two, um, the things that wound us so deeply that we build a life around this event. It's really just a shell of ourselves, and if anything gets too close to that, we lash out. My guest today, Chris, has been fighting whether or not to tell his story, and I call these things not coincidences but coincidences, because you don't get put in front of people and people don't get put in front of you accidentally, especially with the kind of story that Chris has. So I want people to understand that the following content is in an effort to get men, especially men, but I'm sure that there are women that go through this too, but especially men, to be okay with facing issues that destroy you as a youth and in your younger years and even in your older days. Be okay with facing it. So, um, without further ado, Mr. Chris Laino, everybody.
Thanks, Marlon.
I met Chris on Facebook. Just he started following Too Strong and inboxed, and we started talking. And I feel very much like he should have been a friend a long time ago. That's it's oddly enough that's how I feel. Um, I don't
Agree.
feel that way about everybody, but I do feel that way about Chris. Um, I told him as much too, and that we're brothers now. It's not like we're just some random guy on the internet talking to some random guy on the internet. When God decides to do something, that he'll tell you this too. When God says go do it, and you try to fight it, he'll say, I said go do it." And then he'll say, "All right, you don't want to do it? I'll put people in front of you that are gonna make you go do it." And then you go do it. So here's Chris coming to do it. I'm going to give him a couple of minutes to tell you the basic core of what we will be discussing. This might be a two-part, three-part thing. Um, I don't want to make it too long, but I don't want to make it short either. So I want him to just give a little synopsis of what we're going to be kind of talking about, and then I'll be back to expound on his story. So, Chris, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Um, my name is Chris Laino. I'm 52 years old. I'm married. I have four daughters, three from my second marriage. My wife's they were stepchild blended family. I never really considered them steps, but that's just the way things go. Um, and then I have another child through my first wife. Um, it all kind of this all kind of started from just the rage um, that I live with, and Marlon says to breathe when you're gonna cry, but uh, I reached out to him and thanked him for the words, for actually hearing people talk about um, just the truth, what's going on, and it was like getting back to the truth. And I kicked around with this idea of doing a comedy routine, stand-up comedy, but I'm disabled, so that would have been, a lay down comedy. I don't know. You know, they don't really let you put out a lounge chair or whatever on the stage. So, and then that's just my gallows humor because, you know, when you go through trauma, it's a crazy, crazy thing to face. And then I started it. He inspired me to just not be afraid to start putting it into words, what happened and how we ended up where we are. And it, you know, the premise was that I'm a survivor. I'm 52 years old. I've survived so much, and but I've caused so much damage. Sorry, um, to my family, to myself, and but ultimately to my wife. You know, I mean, my wife was my family, but um, so I started out with the first time I felt my parent was going to kill me, and it started out with a segment of just telling a story about a little boy in a crib, a music box, and 300 men bouncing him around the crib, just shaking him and scaring him and screaming at him. Where do you go for there? Just where do how do you go from that type of terror as a child? Recently, I've talked to him again, tried to talk to him about this, told him what was going on, that I was, that I'm working on something, wanted his input, wanted a chance to heal, and it just didn't. Um, Resistance, can't you take responsibility for anything in your life? I've apologized already. Get over it. It was in the past. I can't change it. What do you expect me to do? And now I can't even make eye contact with most people. So uh, I spend most of my days um, in bed uh, because I can't sit for very long. I'll go as long as I can with this, but there comes a time where the pain gets too great that I will end up in the stage of puking. It's that bad. Um, Doctors really, it wasn't an option for me because we didn't have the money back then, and now my wife became disabled, and so verge of losing the house, can't pay the bills. Tried everything we can, and this is where it is. It's just you know, anytime you want to bail me out, get me off the hot seat, Mar.
There's no such thing as a hot seat here. Um, people who know, people who know
I'm a
what,
wreck.
people who know what I'm about. I want look, and I just have a conversation with my wife about this. Um, when okay, you know the story of Jonah,
Yeah,
okay, and most people know the story of Jonah, and
there's a joke that goes with that, but okay.
yeah, Jonah is a great story for people who know they've been called to something and don't want to do it because it is one either too hard or the thing that they're called to do they have no desire to step into because it's against their fabric they feel.
Hmm.
And what you'll see start to happen is that he'll keep putting a blockade in front of the things that you are trying to do and open a path to what he wants you to do, and you still try and find a way to break through the blockade to not do what he wants you to do. Um, but when you do follow through with the things he wants you to do, um, the end result is far more satisfying than following your own path. Trauma in your particular life has brought you to this point. And like you, my wife and I are facing, because I'm also on disability. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Um,
But uh, from injuries and stuff like that, my back is also a train wreck. So trust me, I
I heard you took a
understand.
fall. I
Yes,
heard
I
you took a fall.
understand the pain. Okay, it's um,
It becomes a best friend after a while.
yeah, doesn't it? It just becomes somebody you've moved in with, and you don't really like them, but they're in the house all the stinking time, and and the kind of person that they leave the toilet seat up all the time with pee on it, and then the cupboards are always open. There's always dishes. That kind of person in your home.
Hmm.
And they never clean up. That's back pain. In case people ever wonder what it's like living with back pain. But I digress.
Hmm.
Um, when we're in this position where we have to depend on God for the next thing. And I don't mean we could. You literally have to. Like there is no other recourse. You have to. Because doing the opposite to try and fend for yourself is going completely against what He's called you to do. He has called you to share your story. Okay? He doesn't put these positions in front of people without His purpose and His plan. There are so many people today that are struggling to make sense of their life, the pain they've been through, reconciling that with how could God be the God He says He is, and I went through this. How could He say He loves me, and this is what I went through? And then they have to reconcile that with now being in a position where they are being told to tell it. That is a big deal. And so I want you to be aware of some. And you said you have a Catholic background, okay?
It
Um,
was, yeah.
they build the Catholic faith on the whole thing that Peter's confession of, but they rarely talk about Peter.
Right.
They rarely even really talk about Peter. So I want you to be aware of what Peter um, has gone through and what the premise of, I think a lot of things that people forget about Peter. Peter was
Right.
very cocky. Peter was full and sure of himself, and he told God, "Psh, come on, Jesus, I will never me deny you. Come on, man, you don't know me well, do you?" Now, I want you to understand how much balls that would have taken for Peter to just tell Jesus, "Now, you just don't understand. You don't know me very well, do you? I would never. But
Right.
you'll figure it out soon. You'll see how awesome I am that I would never deny you." And when he did, I want people to understand that the impact that this had. First, he said he would never, then he realized he did, and the exact same way he would, and Jesus saw him do it. So now imagine the guilt of realizing that you're a liar, cocky, arrogant, and the person that you told is the one that's supposed to be saving you. And you did everything he said you would do when you told him I could never do it. And then not only that, you ran. Now, people also forget that Jesus told him when you do it, it's okay for you to go and have your morning session and realize what you did. And but when you're done, when you come back, you'll be stronger for it. People forget that that was what he was told. Peter got a chance to wallow for a bit, realize it, let it have its impact. Trauma, in other words. I want people to understand what Peter went through was indeed trauma. Came back from trauma to be one of the most prolific people for God ever. Okay? I say that to say this. You are in that denial phase, looking at what you did, and you've been in there for a while, but now you're on that portion of I'm coming back. been through the trauma. Now it's time to start telling the story. And you're going to impact more people than you could possibly believe. Trust me, Chris, when I tell you your story and your survival of it and you're thriving in it, because trust me, the thriving is not in how well you handle it. It's that you've handled it and understand that you have a job to do. You don't have to do it 100%. You just have to do it. And he'll provide the avenues for you to do it. Here's your avenue. Chris has
Sorry.
been through a few things, and we'll get into those over time. And I do think I want to do this in a 3-part, if that's okay with you, kind of session. Because when I tell people it's a lot, it's a lot. It's because I do want to break them down in some major parts because people do need to hear it. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. If there's something that you want to say pass. If you want to hit the red buzzer and say, I know the answer to that, then, feel free to
Okay.
do that. But before we go further, I want people to, if you have Anchor podcasting, I want you to go and subscribe to his or follow his stuff. Okay. He tells his story in greater detail than we've done so far. This is his podcast. That's the name of it right there. I will take a copy of the address and I'll put it in the comment section for people to go find it easier. But he tells a story that we'll go through, but in grave detail on this podcast. So make sure you take that address down, go check it out, and listen in. Not for the faint of heart, but also for the people who want to understand that when the term God's grace is sufficient, what it really means. There it is, right there, impersonated in a body, right there. Okay, in persona. So,
Please don't listen to it around children.
Yeah, don't listen to it around children. This is for people who have either known somebody in trauma or been through it yourself. So, with that said, I have a couple of questions, and like I said, if you have, say no, say yes. You had mentioned that you were an infant when your father started to physically abuse you. And one of your stories was I want to make sure I get the title right. Don't kill him. In my neighborhood, in my growing up, that was said to not, but it was more of just you can beat him, just don't kill him kind of thing. In your case, however, it was more of a reality than a passing stereotypical joke. So I want to my first question is,
Sorry.
what is your earliest memory of that abuse starting? At what age, and what's your first real memory of it, and what's that precursor?
Up until about 3, very few memories. My parents, my memory there was of a trauma that was done to myself. I was emulating my father, brushing my teeth and shaving at the same time using his straight razor. Not a straight razor, but a safety razor.
Yeah.
So I actually tore my gums up and the inside of my lips doing it. I remember that. Everything else is kind of until the crib incident. That's what stood out, and that again, I could have been 3. I was able to climb out of the crib. I was able to jump back into climb back into the crib. But I was also thought I was Batman back then. So
me too.
So had a Batman costume for Halloween. It was handmade by my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the podcast, they seem like monsters. They weren't. They were not total monsters. They did do things right. They did try, but I'm not gonna make excuses anymore. I'm not gonna hide behind what was done. And it doesn't make excuses for what I've done at all.
Hmm.
I convict myself every day. When I left the Catholic Church behind, I kind of wallowed until I was in my, uh, probably about 2004, 2003. And then I got into living water out in Bolingbrook. And it was um, I can't even remember um, which denomination it is. I forget. Um, but it was a born again, it was a born again Christian. Um, I felt led to contact my father to talk to him about it, to go back to the church.
Hmm.
Ended up in Promise Keepers and some other stuff. I don't want to lose the plot on this whole thing, but um, as a spiritual head of, father spiritual head, and you try to give that person that respect and that honor. And he tells you whatever you do, and don't tell him anything that, too deep, you know, and when you confess to your brothers. And that was his fear more than anything. Um, so do you want to talk about this crib incident? What
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
happened?
yeah.
Okay. I don't have. Woke up, had a nightmare, for whatever reason. Imagine that. And my father had given me this. It was a um, plaster of Paris music box that was a carousel, like a little merry-go-round that up and but it was just, it had gotten broken, cracked, but it still worked, and we'd glued it back together, and he'd give me that for my birthday. It was one of my earlier birthdays, and for whatever idiot reason I took it and I wound it up to start playing it. Now this is probably 3 o'clock in the morning. They're sleeping in the room next door to me, and I realized that I made a mistake. I knew my father, I knew who he was, and all of a sudden this thing is so loud and I can hear him in the room next door going, what the hell, what is just 0 to complete insane. All I hear from her as he comes bursting into the door was, don't kill him, man. That was my mom screaming. I heard that all the time. All the time. I know other people have been killed. I know other people have been beat to hell. I didn't get beat. I got bounced around. But when you got your mother saying, don't kill him, words have meaning. And so the podcast tells that, after, because I had tried to shove it in the drawer underneath all the clothes, he pulls it out, and I had wound that thing all the way up because, I'm idiot.
Well,
Um,
you're three, so.
well, when you live with somebody like that and you walk on eggshells to just stay under the radar. And like I said, he wasn't always like that, but
But
90% of
when
the
he
time,
was,
90% of the time, and not that he would grab you, or, he did. It actually came down to, he did some physical things, but it really turned into psychological manipulation, gaslighting, the whole gamut of intimidation. And my mother would tell me I was the peacekeeper, the peace, blessed are the peacemakers. I was supposed to be the peacemaker. So I had this idiotic thing that somehow I could make him not be a madman if I did everything I could.
hmm,
And of course, as a child, you make mistakes. So he ends up putting it in the closet. Just made it worse, so which has fueled the rage even more. And then eventually it died out, and you try to go to bed. You try to get on with your life, and then maybe you get an apology, maybe you get a hug. I don't remember the hugs. And later in life, with my children, our children, I always made sure that they knew that whatever they did that day, they were loved. They didn't have to go to sleep wondering whether or not they did something
Mm-hmm.
that was just so wrong.
That they'd lose that love.
Right.
Right.
And God, I feel like a baby. But so that was that was the first time where I actually thought there was a chance I was gonna die. And didn't stop. Didn't stop, didn't stop with one thing. And I had found out that, I had found out later that he had kind of got patty cake with my mom, and he wasn't even in the picture. He had moved out with the babysitter, or wherever, while she was pregnant with me, and then he came back when I was born. So my mom was just a wreck for that time. I said she had a by the time I was born, she had a 3-year-old daughter that, again, abandonment issues. And so that's where that one went. That was just
So you're 52, you say?
yeah,
52. And so that was 51 years ago. No, 49 years ago.
49 years, about that,
49
maybe
years ago.
give or take, because like
Let's say
the time,
48.
yeah,
Let's say
48.
48. And you are now in the process of facing it in a
I,
true.
yeah, I've tried, but I got caught in this. I get caught in this. I call it a trauma loop. And if you've ever had it, you just every little thing that's ever been done to you, every little fear you've ever had is magnified and just keeps coming. So when somebody does something to you now, you freak out about it. And it can be so stupid, you know, about leaving the dishes in there, leaving the
Mhm.
dishes in the dishwasher or in the sink, just, not rinsing them. And it's my wife. Now, back then it was the kids. And it's gotten progressively, the rage has just gotten progressively worse. So I don't know. So, and I tried to go back to the person that, to try to unprogram me. Where's my self-worth? Why do I have such a low self-esteem? Why did I always get attracted to jobs and people that were just going to take advantage of me, or um, just decide I wasn't worth fighting for, you know?
Um,
And
the thing I think we now you and someone said it to the whole equating crying to being a childish thing. Jesus wept. Just, he was a man too. Um, tears aren't always a sign of weakness. Sometimes they're just needing to be done. So I want you to be aware that you can feel free to
right,
release here. This is not the
there's nothing I
this
can't
is not the
control it.
court. This is not the court of machismo. Okay,
Right,
I don't have that here. Um, I want to touch on something that you said though. Um, earlier on, you said that you were done making excuses um, for the way things happened and what really happened, and you're not going to try and sugarcoat. And when you were talking to me, try and make anything sweeter than what it should have been, what it was, and what the reality was.
right,
Um, the positive thing is that you do want to still defend your family. You still want to defend your father. You still want to defend your mom, even with the trauma that you've been through. And I commend you on that because that takes a big person to do. That doesn't happen most people that endure what you endure, the first thing they want to do is make sure that that other person that did it suffers as much as they do or worse in some way, shape, and form. If that means that they break them down to the absolute amoeba form, they're going to do it. Um, which tells me that whether or not you realize it, that God's playing a bigger part in your healing than you know. Um, and acknowledging that would be a good thing for you. But secondly, when you were describing the crib incident, I couldn't help but notice that you still, in all of that, wanted to make sure that people say, to tell people that it wasn't as bad as you think it was. Um,
It was
how big was your dad?
about 300 pounds,
Okay, and you were 3 or 4?
for probably about 30, 40 pounds.
Okay, so he doesn't have to take but one hand to physically dismantle and physically hurt you.
Right.
Okay, so to say it's not as bad, I'm pretty sure it was probably worse than what you just said. So, um, but I want people to understand that this is what part of it is, and I think this is just me analyzing it from the outside. Um, Part of it is that you still want that, and this is what all boys, all men, even when they get older, need, not want, need, is the approval of the father. And they want the love of the father, and they want to have that relationship with the father. And it
I s-
all stems back to us needing the relationship with God. It really does. And the earthly father will never fulfill that in any way, shape, or form, but it can be an archetype. Um, but you also can't negate what had happened in putting it as a not as bad, and it wasn't as an because one, they won't realize just how much it hurt
right,
because you're still cushioning the blow of what really took place. The first step in this is making sure that you are brutally honest with yourself of what really, really, really transpired in you at the time, not what you hope he meant, and not what you hope was the reality, and not what you know of fatherhood that it shouldn't be, what you genuinely actually felt. Um, Facing that will be instrumental and consequential in this next few steps that you have to take,
right,
especially in telling your story. Because for a lot of people that have been through it, they can't be as forgiving. And they need to know that what they're feeling is legitimate. May not be something that they hold on to, but you have to understand that you did feel that way about it. But you being where you are, this is the best part about it. You being where you are in that phase of, I still want to forgive, is big for them. And this story is not just being told for you and your healing, it's being told for millions of his people, of God's people that need that healing too. Um,
right,
you had mentioned too that in one of your podcasting about the church, the Catholic church that you've been a part of.
right.
Um, and we're not going to delve into this episode into all that, but I do want to touch on something that I heard you um, mention in one of the casts. Was you said um, the the friendship of the adult male was something that you relished when you were putting up that ham radio for him.
Right.
But it felt I kind of sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you wish you had that type of interaction with your own dad on a more consistent basis.
I tried.
And so when you found that connection with somebody else, it filled that void. And I think what that ended up doing was also creating the avenue for further misconduct by people. Um, but I want you to break down something for me because I'm the one looking at it from the outside. Please describe for me in your teenage years what the relationship with your father was. And I don't mean the abusive side. I just mean that everyday interaction. What was that like, especially remembering 3 years old and events like that?
Um, very, very controlling, very manipulative. I went to Catholic high school as well as Catholic grammar school. Um, was always told Caesar better, and felt and made to feel like, I should have done better. And for whatever reason, I couldn't because, but you do these scholastic aptitude tests, and everybody's like, um, you top 90th, top 10th percentile. I was actually pretty pretty smart because my reading vocabulary, my reading and my retention was so good. So, but as far as studying, as far as math, I just math illiterate, just couldn't memorize. So with him, it was always a get upstairs, do your homework. Get upstairs, do your homework. Did you do your homework? Did you do it right? And at that point, it's you didn't want to do anything in there. You didn't want to. You tried, but you're up sweating. Just it was like go do your shit and don't come down until it's finished, or you can't go out until it's finished. Okay. I'm kind of not getting this. Anybody got any help for me? Maybe my mother might have tried. I don't remember. I really don't remember. Um, she had her own deal to work with, her own issues
Mm-hmm.
that I accepted a lot more from her. That actually talking to my wife last night was just like, really, you really just don't realize what she was. And again, still honored her, still tried to save her. And I couldn't. She ended up dying in a nursing home with a leg that never healed. She ended up losing part of her leg, and um, we got to talk. I mean, we never we never said, like go to hell. I would always call her, visit her when I could, and I didn't go to the funeral. Didn't want to see any of the family. Didn't want to see anybody that even my sister or dad. You know,
How many
um,
siblings do you have?
I've got a sister. She's 3 years older than me. She's a nurse. I don't know what she is. We haven't talked in so long. It's been birthday calls. I would try to reach out. There was a lot of issues when we were younger. I remember one time I kicked in the bottom of the door because she had locked the screen door because she had locked it. Kitty bullshit, you're being a bad kid. You're being a brat. So she locked me out, and I went to kick it at the bottom of the door, and I kicked through the door. So we had to um, we had to come together to replace the door. So we both had to get paper routes, and
Mm.
she was able to make more money because she was able to babysit, and she became the hand. She had a downstairs bedroom. It was right next to the phone by her door, and she became the hand that reached out, grabbed the phone, dialed it, stretched it into the room, closed the door. You never saw her except maybe at dinner time. She was not a part of my life. I probably didn't deserve it because I was a little asshole, for want of a better term. Because at that time you're like, there were times where she had rescued me when the bigger kids wanted to, hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
But so that avenue was gone. We didn't. It had come back for a little while, and then it just completely disappeared when she graduated college. She went away to, she went and lived her life. She couldn't handle it. Everything was too crazy for her. So,
Yeah,
um,
the family dynamic that you tried to create after the fact in your own family um, doesn't seem like it reflected anything of the kind that you grew up with. You made an intentional decision to be the complete opposite of the
oh,
dysfunction that you had. Am I at least the attempt? Like you wanted to actually tell your
oh,
kids at night.
yeah,
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that
That's
definitely.
what I
But,
mean.
I mean, my
The
first daughter.
execution of it may not have happened, but the attempt
Oh
was
no,
there.
the heart wanted, the heart wanted to show them, and them to have better than I did, and so I never, I talked to the wife about this. I recall spanking her with, you know, let's talk about that later.
Mhm.
But um, but I would, you know, like you said with the flick, I didn't do the flick. I would do the nozo slap, you know, from NCIS. I would just tap her in the back of the head, and she was maybe two-ish. She was right at that height, and I remember I went like this, and she did the duck, and she's like, "Miss me with that," you know, like miss me with that, and it was at that, and honestly, actually, I don't even think I'm remembering it wrong when I didn't go to hit her, you know, tap her or hit her or whatever, you know, abuse is abuse. Okay, I shouldn't have touched her like that. But when I went to raise my hand for something, she did the duck. And that was when I was like, wait a minute, something's, you know, something's wrong here. I'm not
Conditioning.
doing something right. This is just, you know, and, you know, the wife says, well, she just got good reflexes. And I'm like, oh, no, okay, you know, but all the other stuff. I mean, my daughter, because of the dynamics with me and my wife, we worked opposing shifts. I was with my daughter every day after I got off, you know, off of work until what, you know, until it was time for bed. I put her in bed, and then it was wait till 3 o'clock in the morning when the wife decided to stroll in. By 3 o'clock in the morning, you start worrying that because she got off at like 11, you know, by 3 o'clock in the morning, you stop worrying about whether they're in a ditch, and you start saying, yep, you better be in a ditch. So,
Hmm.
so you end up a raging lunatic, and the kid heard it, and the kid saw it. And I remember one time, and I'm not proud of this. I'm not. I went to do the same thing with the ex, and she came in once again 3 o'clock in the morning. Might have been a little bit later, and I asked her where she was, and she said, "What's it to you?" And I lost it. I went to smack her in the back of the head, not hard, not just an upward smack. Like, what do you mean? You know, and I'm a raging lunatic at that point in time. And she turned into it, and I caught her in the nose with an upward slap. She went down like a sack of potatoes and started bleeding. And I remember seeing the blood pool. I thought I killed her. And my kid walked in on it after the fact. I can't erase that from her. So whenever anybody says I don't take blame, I don't accept responsibility, I do. I became a monster with that woman. I couldn't stop it. I loved her. I wanted to keep that family together so bad. I didn't believe in divorce. She just decided she didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. And she was doing everything she could to make me leave her. So finally, you know, went to marriage counseling by myself because um, she told the counselor during therapy that she was afraid of me. And she's like, really, Don? Or not Don, really care? If that were the case, why are you coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why are you disappearing, dropping off the radar? If you're really afraid of him. And I remember after she stopped going, I continued because I was like, this isn't right, what I'm going through. And she told me stay with her as long as you can until the kid can talk for herself because there's no way you can leave that kid alone with her if she can't have a voice. And she was dropping the kid off at this neighbor's house. Not a neighbor, but like the long story. Um, she was dropping this baby, you know, the kid off with this woman. And I remember the kid turned about 5, and she started talking about this guy Terry, this kid. And she's like, "That's mommy's boyfriend." And the wife is like, she's crazy. She, not crazy, but
Yeah.
he's a little baby. So she literally told me that her boyfriend, who became her fiance, was a toddler or an infant, and that looked me in the eye while the kid was standing there and saying she's making it up, and then would go and corner the kid whenever she could and say, "You cannot tell him that, he will kill me." So, not looking for sympathy. I'm just saying what it was. Um, so yeah, I turned into a raging lunatic afterwards. That it just completely lost my mind. And when me and the wife finally got together, I didn't get divorced for like, God, I think it was like 8 years. I stayed married just so that I would never just jump into another relationship. And I didn't believe in divorce. And then finally I met my wife, and she had started me on the road to healing, and just the whole dynamics of everything just. And then we moved out of her folks' house because they actually, it was the craziest thing. She's raised in her mother's Native American and Spanish, I think. Her father's Spanish and Mexican, and but she was so anyway. She was raised in that kind of family, and um, she they actually invited me to move in. They actually said, it doesn't make sense for you guys to be driving back and forth. I was in Illinois. She was in Black Oak, Indiana, and it just went. At first it was, you need to move in, and you should move in, and you can help us a little. And I was giving them money. I was cooking. I was cleaning. I was doing what I could. Um, and then I lost my job, and I couldn't pay as much, and things got tighter and tighter, tenser and tenser. And finally, it came down to, you need to move out. And that happened right after we had invited him to our wedding after we'd gone back
Ooh.
to the church. And he wanted us out of the house. He would not go to the wedding.
It soured things.
Honestly, I don't even think the rest of the family came. Any of the family came. I don't even remember them there.
So how long have you been married to your current wife now?
Mm, Married what? 2000. God, she's gonna kill me. It was like 2005. We
Okay.
started dating. We started dating. She's probably in the background screaming.
So
Um,
almost 20 years.
no, yeah, 20. Well, we started dating in 2009, 11 was when, like, right when we started dating.
2001, okay.
2001, and then we got married 3 years later. And
Okay,
you
so
said
yeah,
2003,
next
2004.
year it'll be 20, yeah.
Mm. So,
Now, I want you to understand this, 20 years is a milestone.
right,
Um,
if we
it
survive it,
it takes a special type of commitment to the person you're with to deal with their trauma coming into the relationship. And then it takes a different person to try and solve their trauma for the other person in the relationship.
right,
And that's the only way you can possibly get to the point where you can use the history of your trauma to help other people.
right,
You have many successes, and I want you to, gonna start wrapping up, but I want you to use it. Keep in mind this in your forefront as you go forward. Um, the successes that you have right now so far, and the types that they are really close to outweighing the trauma that you've been through. Um, because
I
believe it
wish,
or not, the surviving is just the base of it.
right,
Okay, that's just But to get to the point where you begin to flourish in it by accepting that the charge God put on you is to now this is a big thing. He not only saw what you've been through, he not only understands what you've been through, but he still says, I want to have you do something for me. And it is something that only you can do. It is not that he's asking Jake to do in the corner over there or Frank to do your job. This is specific to you, and that is monumental. I want you to understand that this is no small. My history is the reason he's using me where he's using me. Your history is the exact reason why he's using you where he's using you.
That was
Tears and all, which is why I told you originally when we were off camera to not edit anything because he wants you to tell everything as it is. Okay, the people out there are not looking for sugar anymore. They're not looking for a sampling. They're not looking for a properly packaged stories. They're not looking for that. They're looking for the truth and they're looking for the real. They need it. And when we start to use our human traits of saying, well, I don't know if people are ready for that and it's all this glory, let them decide that. That's not for you to decide. You tell your story the way he told you to tell the story. And there will be somebody out there that needs to hear it in the exact way you put it. Because and he said this too, whoever has ears to hear, let him hear. If you're not in that place to hear it, you're not going to hear it. But
right.
you have to tell it. Okay? You have to be the one. He's charged you with it. He's charged no one else with that story. You're the one that lived it. You're the one that his life is impacting right now. And he's the one that's calling you to do it. I personally commend you for even able to step out um, to do it because it is a massive undertaking. This is another part of growth for your manhood as well. What you didn't accomplish as a youth, you're accomplishing now. But either way, you're accomplishing it. Okay? You're getting to the point where men have to get to, which is not all men. Not men don't. They were not called to be so stalwart that we never feel emotion, we never break down, and we never feel pain. That is not manhood. Manhood is experiencing all of those emotions, rectifying them, and funneling them to something positive. That's manhood. A child will take all that trauma and let it burn them out. A man will take that trauma, realize it, face it like you're doing, and use it to help someone else. This is your war. This is your war. But you have one of the greatest generals in your commandership.
I wish I
This is
had
the
your
war.
strength of faith.
It
I
is.
just
I
I
will tell you, it's not a strength. Okay, I'll tell you, I've broken down more times off camera than you can possibly believe. I have broken down more times off camera having done shows that hit more home than you could possibly know. But I don't tell people, not even
right,
my wife, okay? Because that's between me and God to break down for. Um, like hearing your story, the first time I listened to that one, don't kill him,
mhm.
that broke me. And it didn't break me because I went through something. It broke me because I can't believe that fathers can get to that point. I also can't believe that there are kids that go through it. But then what finished me off was the fact that you still are here. That was, and it wasn't a bad breaking. It was the kind of breaking. At first, I was hurt, and then I was happy.
Right.
But I want to like this interaction we're having here and the story that you're putting up because I want people to understand the true traumatic parts of this story is going to come out the next time we talk. Um, but for an intro, I want people to get this clear picture in your mind. of manhood. Okay? Men have been told for a long time that you can't feel, you can't express, you can't speak. You just go, do, provide, shut up. Abraham cried, Jesus cried, Peter cried, John cried. There were David wrote an entire book of just crying, straight up lamenting. Job cried. Moses cried. Samson cried while breaking down a building. Men, and I'm talking about true men, don't put that aside because that has to be part of your journey. That has to be part of becoming aware of who you are. Your calling from here on out is that of expressing your journey to people who think that they can't make it because you're proof that you can. One wheel, maybe on one wheel for a four-wheel car. You might only have one wheel, but you made it.
Yes.
Okay.
Nova going down the road sideways.
Okay, but you're going down the road. Okay, you're not. The car isn't on fire and parked. It's on fire and rolling. So hey, you're still getting to where you got to get to. Um, the advantage is that you'll have a car that you can still turn in, and he'll give you a new one. So the worth of the car isn't for you to decide. It's for the person taking over and giving you a new car, that dealer. Okay, and the dealer is telling you, "I have a brand new car for you to drive. I'll take the old, busted down, on fire, one-wheeled, no canopy car, and I'll tell you what I'll do. I will give you a brand new Cadillac for the cost of that car." And you're looking at him thinking, "You do realize the car I'm giving you, right?" And he's saying, "Yeah, you do realize the car I'm giving you, right?"
Mhm.
And he's giving you a brand new car, all the bells and whistles, and he's giving you a full lifetime warranty, all for a busted, destroyed, disheveled, one-wheeled, on-fire car. But for some reason, men think they need to hold on to that disheveled, burning, no canopy, one-wheel having car, even though God is telling me I have a brand new car for you. You are in that place now where you are accepting the car. The harder thing now is to hand over that old beast that you've become used to now. You've become used to it being on fire. You become moving at a certain speed through life. You become used to it being one-wheeled. It's your car. I went through trauma in that car. But he's trying to give you a car that doesn't have any of that attached to it. Brand new, easy riding, smooth future. He's in charge of all the repairs. He's in charge of all of the maintenance. You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
You just got to sit in the car and drive where he tells you to drive. That's your hardest part right now, is handing over that old car and driving the new one. But I know that you're sitting in the driver's seat. You're just not sure whether you should press on the gas yet. Press on the gas. He's giving you the car. It's not, you don't have to worry about him coming back later to tell you, "Hey, by the way, you didn't sign on the dotted line, or you didn't make this payment." It's free. You are on a journey, brother. You're on a massive, groundbreaking journey. A lot for you, but a lot for people. People that God is seeing that needs someone to stand in that gap for them. That's you. People that have never been able to get a voice, identify a problem, to know how to face a problem. That's you. You are now that person to help them through that. And in the process, he's going to take care of what you're going through. I want you to understand that, okay? And I know why I'm led to tell you all that. I know why. I just didn't plan on having to say all that to you, but I know he's telling me to tell you that.
You know,
Um,
I actually prayed again last night for this.
mhm.
for the strength to do this right, do this so that it helps. Hopefully, for the ones that are out there that know who they are. I keep waiting for the prodigal son, the prodigal daughter. I don't think it'll ever happen, but when the time is right, maybe. There's gonna have to be a lot of healing. You know, my father tells me, I'm sorry, if you gotta cut it,
No, no, no.
we can
You
cut
just
it.
have to keep the robe and the ring ready. That's all.
Yeah.
That's your only job right now, is keeping the robe and ring ready. He had
I've
to get to
got
the bottom, the very bottom, eaten with pigs. Okay, remember that. The dad didn't have anything to do with that at all. The dad didn't have a say in whether or not the son forgave or was repentant. He didn't have a single say in that.
right.
That was a son and God thing. Okay? You just have to have your robe, ring, and party ready. When you start to realize how little work we really have to do, because he does so much already, it becomes a little less daunting. Okay, it's going to be a lot less daunting when you realize he'll be doing the work. What do you say? You sow the seed, he reaps the increase, right?
Right.
All you do is you say it. When it falls, he takes care of the growing. It takes the burden off of you. Your daughter, pray for her soul. Let God deal with it. Pray that God finds her. That's it. God, find her. And when she's done running what she's running, and you're still there, hopefully she finds you. And that's all you can do. But have the robe and ring and party ready. That's all the dad did. Remember, he looked for his son. He saw the son coming, so which means he was looking.
That segment.
Okay, he was looking. He wasn't just like in the back doing something, and then someone servant said, "Hey, your son's at the front door."
Mm-hmm.
He said when he was still a ways off, he saw him, which tells me on occasion he'd probably go stand at the end of the driveway and look because he was expectant. I want you to understand it wasn't just a hope. He knew one day his kid would be coming. Otherwise, you'd just be wasting your time. But he knew he'd be coming down that pathway. One day, one way or another, he's going to coming back down. That's your job. Have the robe, have the ring, and be ready. The same way God was for you. He already brought out the robe and the ring because you're home. It's a cycle that he wants you to learn to get into instead of the bad one. Okay? Understand that.
Okay.
But I want to do this again on the following Monday. Give you a week to recuperate. it's a lot. Possibly the same time if it's okay with you. That'll give people time to see the video and be back, and hopefully we'll have a lot more people to hear. But I do want to get into the meat of this, and we can move forward from there. So I want to really thank you for accepting his challenge, for taking that first step into the water of sharing, being open with people, not Jonahing this time, and going to say what you need to say to people. It is going to be rewarded in one way, shape, or form. And the biggest reward you're going to get is having a closer relationship with God. If that's the only thing you accomplish in this, that's 100% win. Because eventually, initially, that's all our goal, anyways, to get 100% a good relationship with our God. But rest up. I'll be in touch for you to get me that story, that first one, and we can do what we were talking about.
Okay.
And again, people, please, please, please go. If you have Anchor, go and make sure that you are. I don't know how Anchor works except for finding the episodes and going and following it, listening to it.
It's available on Spotify. I think I put everything on my homepage, which is
There you go.
Critch Lane. But
so make sure you go, and you can get the full context of the story on this. Okay, the link is earlier on in the comment section, and I'm putting it again in the later part so you can you can deal with it. Okay.
Okay.
I've had no one to even talk to for the last 2 or 3 years now, and I mean that. I've gotten really close to God, and I've really tried to take my life, and I will not go that route again. Well, Tanya, I want you to understand that I fully understand how that is. But
Thank.
our goal here is to give you a place to talk. Okay. You were saying?
I'm. I can. I how I didn't. How I didn't hurt anybody else. Like, you know, end up in jail. I don't know. I don't know how. Yeah, he was looking out for me.
Mhm.
Which in this day and age, saying that is going to catch all kinds of.
Perfect. That's exactly what we want. We want the demons to be like, "He's doing what again? He's talking." No, and we want them to be afraid. We are done. We are done shying away. That time is gone. We are no longer shying away from the truth. We're no longer shying away from facing him down because we have the winner on our side. We can't be afraid anymore. So I
Throw a
want to
hard
thank
love.
you guys for being here. Appreciate you coming on, Chris.
Thank
We
you.
will out. It's not like I'm not going to talk to you for the rest of the week. I'll be in touch this afternoon when I get done with my day. I'll hit you up, and
Appreciate it.
I'm gonna.
Thank you for your words.
Yeah,
Thank you for showing me again.
yeah, yeah. You're very welcome, brother. Very, 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 very welcome. I've
And
been.
anybody that listens, I appreciate it. I don't. Maybe it can help somebody.
I'm.
I don't want it to look like a big cry fest. That it's
No,
just
no, and
that
it needs to come up, bro. It's okay.
it's just other people have had it worse, but this is me. This is what helped create me. And
And God will help restructure. Don't worry.
it's time for the rebuilding.
Yeah, the rebuilding will happen. And so I want
Appreciate it.
thank you guys for being on with us. Thank you for the comments. I did read all of them. Thank you. And I will be back on again with Corey tonight at 5. But please, 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 please share this video when you can. We need this story to get out. We need people to understand that trauma has a healer, and his name is God. So I want to thank you again, Chris. I'll talk to you this afternoon. And
hmm
people in the audience, remember that wisdom calls to you from the streets. So please, please find wisdom. Peace.